Hi everyone, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I'm your host, Jessica King, and I wanted to quickly thank you for joining us today. The holidays can be a very stressful time for everyone, but there are certain things you can do and prepare for to make them a little easier. Today, Dr. Christine Lay will go over some tips to try to make your holiday a little more merrier. Here's a little more info on today's speaker. Dr. Lay is board certified by the American Board of Family Medicine. She practices at the Tanglewood location. She has been with Kelsey-Seybold since April of 2007. Congratulations. And a couple fun facts about Dr. Lay. Her role models are Margaret Sanger and Eleanor Roosevelt, and she enjoys ballroom dancing. Don't forget, we'll be taking any questions you may have at the end of the webinar. If one happens to pop up, just type it into your question box and we'll do our best to address it at the end of the presentation. And now I hand it over to you, Dr. Lay.
Great to be here, and I'm very excited to talk to you about some ways to prevent holiday hazards. Now, the biggest hazard that people talk to me about is the holiday weight gain. It's important to monitor your food intake over the holidays. Now, some things that you could do to prevent the weight gain is, number one, keep up with your exercise regimen. If you are very happy with your current weight, 150 minutes of exercise a week is perfect to maintain your weight. If you would like to lose weight, or if I tell my patients, if you want to wiggle the jiggle down, it's important to exercise at least 180 minutes per week to keep your metabolism at its best. I've also seen my patients use the fitness bracelets to make sure that they're walking their 10,000 steps, if that's something easy that they'd like to track. Other times I've seen patients use different apps on their phone. One app that's free and also easy to use is something called the MyFitnessPal, and you can actually make a calorie budget for your days, and so you can perhaps cut down on some of your calories a day before you have a big food celebration. So things to consider would be try to eat normally during the day. We have found that it's important to eat breakfast every morning, and so that seems to help out with the metabolism. If you can remember, you can try the portion control. Using smaller plates always is helpful, and at the same time, it may take up to 30 minutes for your body to realize that you're full. So it might be time to just sit there, talk with friends and loved ones before getting that second and third helping. Remember that sometimes if you're stressed and if you're overeating during the holidays, it can lead to numerous chronic health issues that may include diabetes. And once again, if you are going to be having some really great meals, don't forget to keep on moving to prevent the holiday weight gain. During the holidays, we like to have lots of beautiful decorations, and oftentimes this can include live plants. So what we need to be careful about is there are poisonous holiday plants that could be harmful for our pets. Things that we might not think about, the holly, which have the red berries, the poinsettias, the plants with the red petals, and the mistletoe, which is usually very common to see, can be poisonous to both you and your pets. We have found that even a small intake can cause symptoms that may include nausea, vomiting, or rashes. This is very important to know because a large intake can cause serious medical issues, including death. So if this happens, if you or your loved ones accidentally have any intake of poisonous holiday plants, it's important to have the poison control number at your disposal and to call them right away. During the holidays, sometimes we're cooking things that we may not cook as much during the year. Some of my patients have told me about the deep fryers. And if this is not something that you're comfortable with, then it's very important to go ahead and follow the fryer's directions closely. This is important because hundreds of people can suffer from burns each year, and the fires are also associated with all of these things, which there's a diagram here. So definitely in the kitchen, make sure that you don't get distracted. Patients I've seen can sometimes, when they're talking, cut themselves, cut fingers and things. And so just make sure that when you're cooking, you don't get distracted. You make sure that you turn things off when they need to be off. And that if you're cutting something, you have your full focus is only on that. It's something that we don't think about, but heart attacks can still happen anytime. And during the holidays, we have found that sometimes with the higher stress, some people can have a higher risk of heart attacks. Symptoms of heart attacks may include nausea or vomiting, sometimes headaches, lightheaded feeling, anxiety, a crushing chest pain, sometimes radiating down the left hand, sweating, sometimes difficulty breathing. Sometimes people can even get what's called a stomach upset, where they feel exceptionally full or more gassy than usual. And sometimes they can also have very pale skin. So some of these symptoms in someone who's at a high risk of heart attacks, which would be people who have diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, strokes, they need to be very careful with these symptoms. It is very important to take the medicines the way that the doctor recommends. We have found that sometimes during the holidays, people may miss their prescriptions, they may drink more, eat more, and sometimes forget to take their medicine. So once again, it's important to remember, if a person were to develop any of these symptoms that might be part of the heart attack symptom regimen, it's important to contact the doctor's office right away and don't ignore any of these symptoms, as it could be life-threatening if left unattended. So I wonder if most of you will be traveling for the holidays. Definitely with Thanksgiving along to the New Year's, people will be traveling much more than usual. Now this is important to know. The highest rates of drinking and driving are related to accidents from Thanksgiving to New Year's. What I do tell my patients too is remember to don't text and drive, and at the same time, don't be distracted. We have found that when there's more people in the car, it's easy to be distracted with listening to the music or talking with other people in the car, and that can be a higher risk of car accidents. If you will be driving, make sure that you know what kind of weather conditions that you'll be driving through. If you'll be driving through snow, make sure to carry a blanket. Make sure to have plenty of water and snacks and food if somehow your travel arrangements are delayed, and also a shovel in your trunk if you're traveling through very cold conditions. Remember that there could be very heavy traffic, so it's a good idea to perhaps go a little bit earlier. Make sure that you plan everything in advance. At the same time, try to not drive faster than the posted speed limit, especially if the weather is different than usual, if it's rainy, if it's snowy, and you're not used to driving in those conditions. Please drive a little bit slower. If you will be flying, make sure to plan ahead and allow for extra time to get through all the security and any other speed bumps that may come with traveling. A lot of my patients are very excited with the cooler weather because it means that there's other seasonal outdoor activities that we can participate in. Things like skiing, sledding, snowboarding, and other things. It is important to always wear numerous layers to avoid frostbite and hypothermia. At the same time, if you're rusty, if you haven't done these activities for some time, it might be a good idea to get a refresher course before you jump out on the slopes. And if you're not ready to handle the very dangerous slopes, it might be a good idea to stop by the bunny hill first and see how you do with that first. During the holiday season, it's always great to see the beautiful lights. It can be a cause of concern because the Christmas lights and decorations can cause a risk of harm. A lot of it is related to fires. Over 400 fires are related to Christmas trees every year. Things that might help with that would be timers. Um, Over 100 injuries and over 40 deaths have resulted from these fires. What we've also found is that when people are putting up the Christmas tree and also the lights and other decorations, it's important to use the correct ladder, make sure that it's stabilized. It's a good idea to have someone hold the ladder for you to make sure that it doesn't slip, and also to make sure that everyone is safely away from you. Also, they do recommend to prevent the fire hazards, you may want to consider the fire-resistant trees, which seem to be a lot safer. Isn't it great when the kids get to open their toys? I know the adults are so happy in terms of buying it, and they can't wait to see the children's faces when they open up the toys. So we definitely want the children to be happy, and at the same time, we definitely want them to be safe. So it's very important. Please purchase age-appropriate toys to prevent possible choking or injury. A lot of times, the smaller children can also play with their older siblings' toys, and they can swallow them, and they can choke, and it can cause a lot of medical problems. In 2013, over 257,000 related injuries were treated in the emergency rooms. Other toy hazards that you may consider, a lot of times it's the skateboards, the skates and things. Those we definitely recommend using helmets. Also, if you're going to be giving the bicycles and tricycles, once again, it's always important to include a helmet with that and to have the children use a helmet each time when they're out and about in the neighborhood. I don't know if you've met anybody, but I have met several patients who sometimes feel a little bit more stressed during the holidays. Uh, you can definitely change who your friends are, but with family, you're pretty much stuck with the people you are born with. So sometimes spending time with family members can be a little bit stressful. If you feel overwhelmed, if you're feeling very stressed out, if you feel like you can't sleep, your eating patterns are different, your focus is off, if you're feeling more irritated than usual, if you're feeling like crying, if you're more grumpy than usual, if you no longer enjoy your favorite hobbies, this could mean that you have overwhelming stress. It would be a good idea to talk to family and friends and loved ones. And if you do feel very overwhelmed, it might be a good idea to visit with your physician, your either your pediatrician, your family doctor, your internal medicine doctor, and talk with them if you feel that your stress level is too high. There are some questionnaires that you can look online. There is a questionnaire called the PHQ-9 that is used to determine if someone has too much stress. There's another questionnaire called the GAD-7 that's also used to determine stress. And these are two questionnaires that I actually use in my practice a great deal. And it lets us know where a person's stress level is and if it improves with lifestyle changes or medicine. So those are some things that you can think about if you want to know what your stress level is before visiting with the doctor's office. So with the holiday season, I expect that most people will be spending time with lots of family, friends, and loved ones. Now, what this does mean is you will be exposed to more germs than ever. Now, the interesting thing is as the weather gets cooler, the germs get stronger. And also our immune systems get a little bit weaker. And so that's why during the colder season, you might see more people with upper respiratory infections. Now here at Kelsey-Seybold, we've been pushing for the flu vaccine. We've had it since August. And if you haven't received the flu vaccine, it's not too late. Go ahead and get your flu vaccine from your doctor's office, from our vaccine center at most of our clinics, and actually at most of the pharmacies should offer the flu vaccine. There are many different types of flu vaccines that are available. Check with the medical personnel to find out which flu vaccine is indicated for you. Most of the time it is a vaccine in the arm, but for some people who are very healthy, they may qualify for a flu vaccine in the nose. Once again, it is flu season, and the only way to prevent the flu is good hand washing, the flu vaccine, also getting enough rest and fluids, and trying to keep your body as healthy as possible, which means, remember, the 150 minutes of exercise a week if you're happy with your weight, and 180 minutes of exercise per week if you want to wiggle the jiggle down. A lot of patients will ask me, Dr. Lay, how can I prevent from getting sick during the holidays? Well, it's important to not touch your eyes and nose. We don't have much in our eye and nose secretions that prevents germs. And for some people, if your eyes tend to be on the drier side and you're touching it, it might be a good idea to consider getting some eye lubrication drops to help out with that. If you're noticing that you may have some allergies, it might be important to talk to your doctor's office to see which medicines are safe for you. Most of the time, the over-the-counter nose sprays could be helpful for you, and there are other options, some tablets that might also be safe for you to take. But once again, talk to your doctor's office. If you do have high blood pressure, it's important to stay away from medicines over the counter that have a big D. The big D is pseudoephedrine, and this is a medicine that's usually used for congestion, but for people with high blood pressure, it can shoot your blood pressure sky high, and you might wind up in the hospital with very, very high blood pressures. So remember, before you take anything over the counter, contact your doctor's office and make sure that it's safe for you. Other things to think about is, remember, if you're going to be carrying a lot of luggage, heavy gifts and things, remember to use good back safety, which means making sure that you bend your knees, that you use good form with doing that, because you don't want to herniate a disc during the holidays. Once again, it's important to stay healthy and happy during the holidays. Be careful with overeating. And what I tell my patients is it's okay to have some cheat days. About 2 days a week is fine. If you have a very bad meal, it's going to be important to eat much healthier for the next meal. And we'll be able to have a very happy and healthy holiday season.
All right, looks like we have about 10 minutes left for any questions that anyone may have. And I want to start us off. A lot of people are going to be traveling this season, and a lot of people have illnesses like asthma or diabetes. Should certain precautions be taken while traveling with certain illnesses, or should any destinations be avoided?
That's a good question. For patients who have some chronic medical problems, it is a good idea. We have found that when people have a regular physician, a regular PCP, their health is much improved. So for example, if a patient has asthma and they usually require their inhalers, it's a good idea to make sure that their inhalers are up to date. Also, most inhalers, we do recommend some type of chamber device to make sure that they're doing fine with that. If they're using nebulizer machines, it's important to have all the medicine handy. In Houston, asthma tends to be much higher during certain seasons. The especially this time of season when the weather's changing, it might be a good idea to visit with your doctor's office, make sure that you're all set. For someone who has diabetes, it's important to make sure that they have all their medicines. If a person's on insulin, the medicine needs to stay refrigerated, so that's important. Most destinations are going to be fine, but it's important to check with your doctor's office because there could be some vaccines that are recommended. So, for example, anyone who's got diabetes or asthma, guess what? The flu vaccine is recommended. I know I sound like a broken record, but really, it is the flu season. So, anyone with chronic medical problems, most of the time, unless you're allergic to eggs, that flu vaccine has your name on it. Contact your doctor's office and get that flu vaccine. It's still time.
I have another question here. We touched on stress a little bit, and you said that it's always good to talk to your family, talk to your physician if it's needed. Do you have any stress relieving tips or things you can do on your own to try to regulate it during the season?
A lot of times, what I tell my patients is the holiday seasons tend to be stressful for most people. It's important to try to stay healthier before, and so try to get enough rest and fluids. Most people, regardless of age, probably need anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of rest a night, and try to get enough water. Once again, we want to try to increase that exercise because that actually will help people feel a lot better. There was an interesting study done in the UK where they found that when people were feeling stressed or bummed out, if they sat in a green space like a park for 30 minutes and enjoyed the sunshine, their mood instantly improved. So there's lots of little things. I still think exercise is important. It's still important to have a chill out time if you can. We also have found that people who have pets tend to walk at least an hour more than other people. And so if you have pets, take them out for a walk. If you don't, you may consider borrowing someone's pet. They'd be happy to have you join them, I'm sure, for a walk. It's good company for everybody.
We have a question here. Somebody is asking if you could repeat the online test names to check your stress levels.
Yes. So this is from Peggy. These are two questionnaires that have been used a very long time. The first questionnaire is used to test for depression, and the name is PHQ-9. And it's a series of questions. The other one is actually used to test for anxiety. It's called the GAD-7, and that test for anxiety. Here at Kelsey, it's definitely something that we have been using to determine if our patients are feeling stressed, and also at the same time, if with lifestyle changes or medicines, it's also something that we're using to determine if a person's stress is improving. And so those are some things that you should be able to look online and find very easily.
I have another question here. I know you talked about eating this holiday season and you touched on that. Do you have any other tips? Because one of your tips was smaller plates for this holiday.
Well, what we have found is, for a person's metabolism, a lot of times I've noticed that many of my patients will skip breakfast and lunch and then perhaps have a very large meal late at night. That is a recipe for disaster. Most of the time, people will gain weight with that. It's very hard to lose the calories if you're eating after 7 o'clock. So to prepare for the holiday season, I would recommend get started. You don't have to eat too much, but a little bit of breakfast is fine. Have some cereal, either with some type of you can use Cheerios with some type of milk or almond milk or soy milk. Breakfast should actually be your biggest meal of the day. You definitely need all those calories for your brain. And we have found that when you have a bigger breakfast and a pretty good sized lunch, your dinner portion will be a little bit less, and that's going to help to prevent the extra weight gain during the holidays.
All right. Well, it looks like that's all the questions that we had for this webinar. Um, so y'all just received some tips on how to make the holiday time a little more manageable and safer, and we hope the information was helpful to you. This concludes the webinar, and I want to say a very big thank you to you, Dr. Lay. You did such a great job. And thank you all for joining us for this presentation. Remember to register for our next presentation on January 6th, New Year, New Resolutions, How to Make Them Stick, featuring family medicine Dr. Segal. And don't forget to follow us on social media and join in on the conversation. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to y'all in December, and I hope everyone has a great holiday season.